Welcome to Pagan Coffee Talk. If you enjoy our content, please consider donating and following our socials. All right, so we're coming up on, of course, the Samhain season here. There are some traditions that have been passed down, like not harvesting anything after Samhain.
Right. There are certain traditions and things that we talk about, and it's more of a question: should we keep on doing them?
Right. Is it outdated?
Right. Or do we need to change that based on our environment or so forth and so on?
I mean,
With me?
we've long said, that, it's a way of life for us.
Right.
And when things aren't practical,
Right.
we make changes.
Well, for like farming, we live in the southern part of the United States.
Yes,
Our
we do.
growing season's a little bit longer than the average compared to some of the northern states.
Yeah.
All right. Or to the British Isles. Because normally after Samhain in some of these places, it's too cold to grow anyway. True?
Well, I mean,
Where
there are some things that grow during the winter, but you don't harvest them.
no, I mean, you got like garlic that you plant now, and
Right.
you won't be harvesting that for like 6 months.
Right. Right. But again, you're not harvesting anything.
No,
But where we are, we could potentially still harvest.
true. But think about it like this: there are also crops like pumpkins and stuff like that are
Mm-hmm.
fall crops that we don't until closer to Samhain actually pick, because they don't ripen until closer to the fall season. But because of our growing thing don't match up to what we teach traditionally of the wheel of the year all the time.
No, it doesn't.
All right.
I think it's good to know that. I think it's good to know the past history behind it. But like I said before, if it's not practical,
well,
should we continue?
Well, I'm sorry. If I lived in California or Florida, I mean, am I really going to not pick that tomato that's growing? I mean, are you with me?
Yeah.
I mean, because if I lived in Florida, yes, I could grow tomatoes for a longer period of time because it's warmer down there. It doesn't get as
Mm-hmm.
cold. Now, I know where we are that sometime around Samhain, we're going to get a frost and it's going to kill off my tomato plants.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing I can do about that.
No.
All right. But it happens around that time. So should we base some of these, should we take some of these traditions that we have based around these times and actually convert them closer to our seasonal time versus that wheel of the year calendar that we use?
Well, I think for our region, we probably should. I mean, it only makes sense.
Let's see.
I think it
That
should
would
be
also,
based on your region.
well, then that also brings up the whole entire question of, does that mean the Sabbaths change?
Why would they?
Well, I mean, if you're not doing the last harvest until the end of November versus October, should that not be when you're celebrating Samhain because it's the end of your summer, it's the last harvest?
No, see, I think that's going a bit too far.
Okay, well, I mean, that's part of this conversation. How far do we go with this? What don't we do? What do we do?
Yeah,
What should we?
no, I think that's going too far with it. I think you just move the harvest, and then you acknowledge the fact that
Well,
traditionally
yeah,
the last harvest was around this time, but because of our region,
it's not so much. Well, I mean,
right,
for again, like for us in our area, it's a little iffy. We sort of sometimes do and sort of sometimes don't follow the correct
right,
seasons of where we're located at, because sometimes it's warmer than sometimes it's cooler. I mean, what was it? August, not too long ago, we had like a month of cold weather out of nowhere. I mean, that's not the stuff I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the normal seasonal changes that don't always happen everywhere at the same time.
again, I think when you're talking about changing the Sabbaths,
Right.
I mean, I just did a quick search, and even astrologically,
Right.
Samhain falls like somewhere around the 6th, November the 6th.
November the
So
6th.
it's still right in that time frame of when we typically celebrate.
Anyway.
So I don't think you can change that.
Well, now let's bring up, now when we're talking about changing in time and all this, all right, the Earth is slowing down each year. So the length of day is slightly getting longer at each time. When do you think we should start to address those problems? Basically, when we get to the point to where leap year is every other year and not every 4 years, at some
Yeah,
point
but
that will happen.
how long is it going to be before that happens?
Again, I think it's something we need to start thinking about now and discussing as religious leaders on where we're going to go at in the future. How are we going to look at this?
Okay, but that could be 100 years down the road.
Again,
None of us will be here.
Well, now I could argue that with you. We do believe in reincarnation.
Yeah, true.
So yes,
true.
We could be around in 100 years. Okay, maybe not in this body.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to start talking about it, I say we go ahead and start talking about it. I mean, when things start changing to that extent, yeah, we may have to make some modifications. We may have to, if the days eventually get back to the point where we're following a lunar calendar again.
Well, again, this whole entire thing goes, I mean, as we go to the extremes of this is, okay, what happens if the conspiracy theories are right about the polar shifts?
Mm-hmm.
How much is that going to mess up our religion? Considering we're based on cycles where the North Pole suddenly becomes the South Pole and the South Pole suddenly becomes the North Pole.
Well, then
are you with me?
I mean, if you're changing the poles like that, then, we will have to make adjustments. I mean, it's just...
what adjustments do we make? Are you with me? Do we just do everything completely? Do we just flip everything?
Yes.
Instead of casting circles clockwise, we always do counterclockwise versus...
Yes.
I mean, literally.
I mean, you got to go with the flow of energy, right?
But yeah.
And if the flow of energy is going counterclockwise because of your region, wouldn't you cast your circle counterclockwise?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Do we continue to do that? I mean, yeah, no, we're playing pretend here. We're pretending like a polar shift or whatever wouldn't destroy everything and life would be going on the very next day.
Right.
And that's sitting there going, oh, well, duh, what do we do now?
Right.
I mean, because there is a lot of things in society that are based on all these things, like clocks. Clocks rotate in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to change that too as a society?
Well, I mean, it's not like below the equator clocks run counterclockwise
either. I mean, again, I'm like you. No, it doesn't.
So I don't see where that would be affected by anything.
Well, I guess it would just depend on where each tradition decides to draw those lines. I could see a tradition sitting there going, no, even before this happened, we always did it clockwise, so we're always going to do it clockwise because that's tradition.
Right.
But I can also see where in the world some people go, well, no, because the world's changed, we have to change too. And again, causing another division between the two in the same traditions.
I mean, it's very possible. It happens all the time.
I wonder what in the world certain outside influences have on our traditions when we start thinking about this. What do we do? I'm being serious, and everybody's probably going to listen to this going, okay, he's lost his mind. But what do we do when aliens do show up? There's nothing in our belief system that says they don't exist.
Right.
All right. Like there are in certain other traditions or in certain other religions that this is the only world. Nothing says they do and nothing says they don't. So.
Right. And there's nothing that tells us how to handle that type of situation either. So I think
No,
that's going to be, I think if that ever happens, that's going to be an individual basis. And when I say individual, I mean, we speak covens. So
yeah.
I think that's going to be up to the coven.
Oh, what to do and
Yeah.
leadership to say, okay, no, this is the way we're going to go versus this way. And well, again, if you're a coven and you're doing that and you're the leaders, you probably need to have reasons
Oh,
for why you're
absolutely.
making those choices. Because I see a lot of people in covens and stuff, they often make choices based on their feelings, not what's in the best interest of the all the time.
Right. But I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, if you're going to be making changes like that, you need to have a reason for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's
There
all I'm
needs to be
saying.
some logic behind it.
Something that people can actually hold on to and go, okay, this makes sense why we're doing it this way
Absolutely, yeah.
versus any other way. I keep on looking at all this stuff and other people and what in the world they say. And I spend a lot of my time going, look, every belief system is right. You believe what in the world's best for you. But I was starting to wonder over the years, is this completely true? And especially when I'm looking at certain other traditions and stuff like that, like Heaven's Gate,
Hmm.
okay, these, Jonestown and stuff like this. Are all traditions equal?
I mean,
I mean, throughout this whole entire conversation, are we going to be sitting there going, okay, are the Gardnerians going to win out on what in the world they want versus what in the world us old guard want to do because we're a smaller branch of are you with me? Kind of like what I'm seeing in the pagan community now.
how so? What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, like, I'm sorry, the bigger, well known ones are all the more, lack of a better word, more liberal, less traditional
Hmm.
versus us.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that more and more of the younger generations are coming in and they're taking leadership roles and they're bringing their ideals in,
Well,
and
don't get
their
me wrong.
ways of thinking, and that's fine. But I think for I kind of I kind of liken it to um, the church that I grew up in when the younger generation started taking over the leadership roles.
Right,
They started making changes, and the changes were fun, especially for them, right?
right,
But it started isolating the older generations
exactly.
because the older generations, they weren't really accustomed to the new way of doing things, and they didn't really want to make that change. It made them uncomfortable and things like that. And I kind of see the same thing happening now with what you were talking about
Right.
because it is a lot of the younger folks
Well,
coming in and stepping up and taking those leadership roles, and
well,
things
see,
are changing.
which drives me up the wall because in most witchcraft traditions, when we're
Hmm.
talking actual covens and stuff like that,
Hmm.
your elders work with the high priestess and the high
Hmm.
priest, who's ever in charge, who's ever making them. You still have elders you're responsible toward. Well, I am the high priest of our temple and stuff like that. And yes, I have a certain amount of authority. That authority is very limited.
But even then, my point is that like the generation after us. So the millennials are coming in behind us, right?
Right. I'm not saying
They
that they're not.
No, 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 and I'm not saying anything's wrong with it. I'm just saying this is how I see the changes happening, right? So
Right.
the millennials are now in the leadership roles, and then Gen Zers are coming up behind them, right? So millennials are stepping into the elder roles. The
Right.
Gen Zers are coming up in the leadership roles, and while they're working together, they still have slightly different ideas.
Well, I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying that it is the responsibles of the elders in the temple to temper those changes to where everybody's still included.
Yeah.
Are you with me? That's why they're there. They're not there to tell a high priest or no, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. They're there to go, well, if you do this, this is also what you're going to be doing. You're going to be isolating this group of the temple away from everybody else.
Well, but also you got to look at it this way. Some of those covens that are making those changes, I think a lot of the people inside of the coven are okay with the changes. If they're not, why would they stay?
I can sit there and argue how well do kids raising other kids work out?
A lot of our generation were kids when they had kids, so
Well, but there's a lot of us. We grew up. We were we were raised by our parents. We were around our parents. I remember sitting there and listening to my mom having conversations with the neighbor down the road about stuff I didn't care nothing about because I was still a kid. Politics and all that other stuff. I sort of
true.
learned how to behave because I was exposed to it. But I see kids now growing up where the parents start to have a grown up conversation with another adult and they'll look at the kids, okay, you need to go outside and play. And they never get that experience of that. They're only getting the experience of dealing with their own age. It seems to be causing a problem because, again, millennials are only used to dealing with millennials. Generation X is only used to Generation X. Well, I shouldn't say that, but you with me.
Yeah,
It seems like society, each generation is becoming more isolated in and of itself.
I was
Our
just gonna say that. Yep.
our generation, the reason most people liked, most of our bosses liked us is because we knew how to talk to the boomers and we knew how to talk to the millennials
Right.
because we weren't raised we weren't raised by our, you know what I'm saying? We weren't raised by other kids. We were raised by adults. We were around, but we were the first latchkey kids and stuff like that. So they sort of overdid the adult supervision when they could.
Yeah.
I can't go down the road without, one of the neighbors' moms calling me, hey, you know what your son did?
Right.
All right, which was a completely different experience than what I saw, like my nieces and nephews who are millennials. They just sort of stayed among themselves.
So then, how do we fix this? How do we fix this within the pagan community?
Well, again, we don't need to be sending kids off. How else are they going to learn? They've got to see adults being adults.
So are you saying we
We
start
start
allowing
including them. We start
we start
including them.
okay.
We start including kids in the conversation from the beginning. If you go back to the early 1900s and talk to kids back then, most of them kids that are like 13 and 14 talk more like adults. They knew what was going on in the world. They kept reading the newspaper. They kept doing this stuff. They talked about what was going on. These
So as
kids were working in bars and stuff like that, listening to the customers.
okay, so are you saying we need to start teaching kids?
Yes. Parent again, we've gotten to this habit where we think that adults and kids should be in separate spaces. Are you
Okay,
with me?
so should we also start allowing children into ritual space?
I don't know. I still don't have a problem with them on the outside because, again, you still have there are certain energies I do not think kids should be exposed to. These are
Right.
more adult energies,
Mm-hmm.
which can probably push kids to do behaviors they're not ready for mentally or emotionally.
Right.
All right. So, again, I'm not so sure about that. I'm just saying, I think we need to start actually talking to our kids again. I've seen it over the years. We don't talk to our kids anymore. We don't interact with them.
Okay, so we should you're saying we should be more like
We should throw the kids' Xbox out.
yeah.
All right. We should start playing board games again and having conversations, working with the kids. And are you with me?
Yeah.
We keep on giving them iPads and all this other stuff and shoving them in a corner, and they keep on acting this way,
Well, I
even
mean
when they become adults.
it's like Lady Keegan. I mean, her kids have all that stuff, but she she limits
Right.
their time with that. So they are allowed to play their games. They're allowed to, be on Xbox, the computer, whatever. They're allowed to do all that. But she limits their time.
I think her oldest one was, how old was her oldest before they even bought him a phone?
Oh Lord.
14?
12 or 13, I think.
And even then, they limited who we could contact on the thing too. So,
yeah, well, I mean, he didn't really have, too many people that he wanted to contact to begin with.
No,
family members, but
mainly adults, not other kids.
Yeah,
funny how that is. But again, she's also homeschooling, so her kids are around more adults than they are other kids.
Yeah, she's she's not the typical thing that I was trying to talk about, but no, she does, and I believe she includes her kids in conversation. So, plus she's teaching them a little sprinkle of paganism here and there.
a little,
yeah, just a little. Okay, maybe a lot.
Okay,
but but she's teaching them.
Considering she skipped Greek mythology altogether, just went to Celtic mythology.
Right.
All right. Because I do, and I'm going to go ahead and brag. I do know her oldest did a paper for her comparing Luke Skywalker to Ludolf Gifties.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
The silver arm, the whole 9 yards, and how they're alike.
I love it.
Well, I hate to be this way after I think I read that thing, and he sort of makes a good argument that Luke Skywalker might have been based on Ludolf Gifties.
He very well could have been. I mean, there are some similarities for sure.
So now that we've been all over the place.
I know, right? We've been around the world today.
I mean, from a simple question of, well, again, the idea is, what do all these religions do if the conspiracies are real? I mean, what do we do if the whole Illuminati thing is real? And are you with me? What do we say?
If that shit's real, I want in on it.
Thank you.
I want in on it. I want to be part of it.
We're being greedy.
Right?
Because I find it funny because I watch certain political shows and blah, blah, blah. All right. Mm-hmm. That's my private life.
Right.
But I hear some of this stuff about, oh yeah, these whole witch, blah, 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 and how they're trying to take over the world. But then on the other hand, you also hear them, and we're dumb little tree hugging pagans that don't know our ass from a hole in the ground. Which are we? Are we some dastardly group of people, or are we some tree hugging fruits out in the... Make up your mind. We can't be both.
Well, apparently we are.
But I know the argument. Oh, no. The Illuminati's something different from y'all. They know and y'all just, they're just tricking you. I've heard it all before, and I'm like, are you sure? Are we really as powerful as you think we are? Or could it just be something else that you think it is? All right? Or you just wanting to see what you want to see? Because I'm sorry. I've ran a coven for how long? And trying to get 10 people to walk in the same direction.
Right.
Being in management, getting 5 people to do one project correctly is difficult.
Yeah, it can be, yeah.
And then when you think about stuff like that, how in the hell do they get away with some of these conspiracies? Makes no sense.
Beats me.
So,
well, again, I don't think we've answered any questions, but
well, I don't either. I mean,
hopefully it's food for thought.
Well, again, the same argument comes up. What happens when Elon Musk does what he says, and we can live on Mars?
Right.
How do all these religions? How do all the religions change? How do you calculate Christmas for Mars? I mean, or Easter?
I don't know. They'll have to come up with a new calendar.
Because Easter, I mean, especially like Easter, all right? Because Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the equinox.
Yep.
That date always changes.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So, I mean, there's my question. What do we do? What do we do with these things like this? All of them.
I think something like that would just have to go to a more astrological
Or smarter
type
people than
calendar.
us.
Huh?
Or smarter people than us.
Well, yeah, probably.
So, again, questions, no real answers.
Food for thought, though.
Food for thought. Let's ask the audience. What do y'all think? What would y'all do? What would you change? Come on, let us know. Matter of fact, while you're at it, if you want to, give us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Good or bad, just review us anyway.
Right. Tell us how crazy we are.
Please tell us how crazy we are. But no. That's the real point of this. What happens when the conspiracies are real?
Right.
What do we do when the Tuatha De Danann turn out to be aliens and actually do land and their city reappears in 3 days out of the fog? What if they're right? What if we're wrong? And I think that's about it. I need coffee.
Let's go get some coffee.
Please.
Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another episode. Pagan Coffee Talk is brought to you by Life Temple and Seminary. Please visit us at lifetempleseminary.org for more information, as well as links to our social media: Facebook, Discord, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit.
We travel down this trodden path, a maze of stone and mire. Just hold my hand as we pass by a sea of blazing pyres. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning breaks. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning.